Hello, Linda.
Hi, how are you?
I am good. How are you?
I'm doing great.
We are excited to see you. Thank you for being here at the virtual convention teaching our sewing workshops.
I'm excited. I'm hoping everybody learns something.
We always learn something really wonderful from you. You are such a great teacher. Linda, in our first segment, what are we going to learn about?
Well, we're going to do a little review, and then we're going to see how time goes, and we might start on the new techniques. So you have to have the techniques before you can do the project. So that will be helpful.
Thank you for always doing a review. So what are we reviewing?
Well, it's in the book.
Okay, so get out your little sewing reference, everybody. This is in the file section and in the little download link that's on the schedule.
I to sit down.
Quick review of previous techniques.
Yeah, we're going to do a running stitch. And I've already got the needles threaded. Now, we talked about you cannot I'm going to hold it over the pink so maybe you can see it better.
Yes.
Make a knot. Go 1, 2, 3, pinch, and pull.
Okay.
That is a knot. We'll do it one more time. It's like a cross, or an X. 1, 2, 3, pinch, and pull.
All right.
Okay, if you don't want to do a knot, and sometimes I do not, because it makes a little lump, you can just do a back stitch. Remember to always pull your thread towards you or in the direction of the needle, because if you start pulling it this way, what you're doing is having friction on it and it tends to want to knot more. And of course you would be using white thread, but I'm using black because
thank you for doing that.
because you could never see it. And there's your running stitch. Now there's a running back stitch, and a lot of people do that, and I do a lot. You go, okay, it's sort of like a dance, and there is a little knot. So you just pull that knot out like that. And then I take a step back, just like a dance. And go ahead and do the running stitch. Another step back and forward. There.
Okay.
And usually it's a 1/4 inch, and that's off a little bit. This is more like a 1/4 inch right there. Always cut your thread at an angle so you're ready to start the next time. The next thing is the running of the machine stitch. On this machine, it's usually at 12 stitches per inch. Can you see that, Rachel? See if I can. Let's move it up.
There we go. Yep, we can see that.
Put it down. And I'm just going to, it would be, let's start there. That would be about your 1/4 inch. On the older machines, it's better to make sure the thread's underneath the foot. Really, even on the newer machines. This is not wanting to cooperate, of course. Always pull the wheel towards you and pull straight back. Sorry. If you wanted a basting stitch, go down. More stitches, less stitches per inch. And this is good because
It's easy to pull out.
And it's for gathering.
Oh, yes.
And see, I can take it out.
Oh, that's nice.
So if you're wanting to test it, like we're going to talk later, I always use basting stitch. So that's the review on the machine.
Okay, the next one is Overcasting and Zigzag, modern only.
Okay, overcasting, we overcast a lot for the antique or reproduction. Here again, I lock my stitch. Now, usually on an overcast, it's half the distance of your seam. So it would be, and it's just to keep your fabric from fraying. Go straight back. You notice my fingers back here, and I'm using it as a guide. My needle is coming toward me straight, not at an angle. If you start trying to angle it, it doesn't work. I tried it for years, and the needle needs to be straight. And then you get that nice little angle. Where if you're doing a modern dress on the other newer machines, then they don't have to be real new. Most of the older machines, I think even 1948, I'm not sure, had zigzag. And what it is you'll adjust the width. And we do not have a width here on this old featherweight. This is just the length of the stitch. Usually the width is up here, and you will adjust it for zigzag. And you would be able to do it on the machine rather than have to do it by hand. That's one of the main differences in sewing for an antique or a modern doll.
Okay.
We also line our dolls differently in their costumes between the antique. We flatline them, which we aren't going to talk too much about, and we use the fabric as one piece versus lining it and putting all the seams in, so you don't have to overcast or zigzag. A whip stitch is basically this stitch. That's a whip stitch or an overcast. A whip stitch would be over, and we're going to do it over the wire. And do I have the wire? No, not here. Right. So let's find something that I can use.
So we're just pretending this is a wire.
Or something else that you need to secure. A whip stitch is basically just that. It's whipping it, holding it down in place. And this is what we're going to do with the hat wire. It says whip stitch the hat wire to the buckram. Okay. And there you are.
All right. That one looks pretty easy.
Yeah.
So we have straight of the fabric / cutting layout. Again, we are on page 3, everybody, in your little sewing reference handout. Look.
Okay, we're going to lay out this fabric, and with the straight on the arrows needs to line up with the selvage. This is cut 2, cut 2, cut 2. You can see that I just folded it over, and you can turn this because there is no pattern here where it has to be going straight. So this will save fabric, and I could put it there, or I can put it over here. And you can see, and I can move this. Now we will pin it. And I like to pin mine several places. Okay. That's a little close. Notice I'm using the board and I'm pushing down and then I'm pulling up. So I'm not moving my piece. Then I can cut right on this board. What I'm going to also do is I'm going to go like that. Now, these are single pieces. I want to make sure I've got the right size. And we would do the same thing.
Make sure that you guys know with the longer piece, you place it, you line it up just like that.
Now, you're also going to, yes, and then you're going to have all this extra fabric here. It's for your other pieces, like your hat fabric. And whatever. I don't think that, I think you've got all that extra that you can play with.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes. But that's how we'll do it. Another hint when you're learning to cut is sometimes I will do it like this. Notice I keep the piece flat and take nice cuts. Now these are called notches. They aren't meant to be cut off because when you line these up when you're sewing, they line up perfectly and you match the notches and then you'll ease in the shoulder. So when you go, there's 2 ways to do this. Some people cut the notch into the seam, other people leave it out. I prefer to leave it out. But notice how I'm leaving this flat and I'm moving the fabric. There you go. That's some hints. But some people like to cut and leave these together, and that's fine. It's just a preference. Okay, the next thing on there is the buttonhole stitch. And we're going to talk later about before you cut out your pattern and why we are going to do certain things. The buttonhole stitch. Okay.
All right, Murray's on Linda's chair. Okay, there we go.
Murray and I can share the chair. Put Murray behind me so he's quiet.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah, we had to, he's been barking, so we had to spoil him.
We are going to I usually
Excuse mer, everybody.
use double thread, and it's like so. Okay, there's the first one. Come through. Of course, this would be closer, but I'm leaving space if you were doing a buttonhole stitch. Put the heel of the needle through and pull up. Then you get that little loop. I'm really having problems today. There. There we go. And of course that would be closer, but that is what they consider a buttonhole stitch.
All right.
Okay, using the proportional wheel. We've had some questions that can I reduce this if I don't have Grace, if I could use it on another doll, and yes you can. And this is how we would do it. This is not Grace, but it's her body. And we're gonna do this. Sorry. This vision here was. I'm going to take the main piece. Usually it's her hips and her bust. I'm going to measure. This is Grace's body. So it measures 8. So I pulled a doll that I had at home, which is Leah. Okay. And she measures about 6. Okay. So what you're going to do on the proportional wheel or scale, you're going to see where it says reduction size, original size. So we said that Grace was 7.5, which is right here. This is
Was
okay.
she closer to 8? I think you said 8.
Did I?
Or maybe I'm wrong.
I don't know. I'm glad you checked me. Yesterday I measured it was 7.5. Maybe she
Maybe she grew
gained.
bust size. Maybe
Don't
I'm
we-
wrong. I just
don't we-
remember you saying
Well, I had
8.
7.5.
Sorry, everybody.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Always
My bad.
correct me. Always correct me. Always ask questions. Okay, we have the original size, so it's 7.5, and then Leah was 6. So right here is 6 for the reduction size. So we might line those up. And it says that we reduce it of the original is 80%. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
So when I took the pattern that I gave you for Grace and put it to the copy machine and reduced it to 80%, this is what I got. And you notice that I put 80% on it because so many times you get these pattern pieces and you can't remember what you reduced them to because it takes a little bit of doing.
That's so helpful.
So what I did is, where is it? I made a mock, and I never cut, usually never take good fabric. I just take nice, decent fabric, a cotton, and cut out the pattern that doesn't have lining or anything. And I thought, okay, lady, pull your pants up. To see if that was true. Because sometimes, you know, her hips might be a little big, or you might have to adjust it somewhere. And you will have to adjust it a little bit. What I came up with, as you can see, this seam needs to go there. And it is really tight. Now, I could adjust this by maybe changing my width of my seam allowance, or I can just change my reduction size. The other thing it tells me is that I'm going to need to take off on the pattern a little bit on the shoulder seams. You can see right there. And what I would do is, you notice that I basted this. There's a reason I basted it, because what I'm going to do is, if I was going to ever use this pattern for this doll, I would go just like this. And I know if I pin this like so and take my 1/4 inch seam, and that's how I would adjust it. And then I would use these pieces as my pattern by, let's see if it works, taking this apart. They would become my pattern pieces then. But what I figured out is that I would reduce this only 85%, and it would be almost perfect. You can see that the length, if we were making it the same length, would be about right. If I took up a 1/2 inch. So lengthwise, this would be an easy way for you to adjust. You can also enlarge by using the proportional wheel.
That's so helpful, everybody. So you can adjust it larger or smaller and just do whatever you want to do. So I think we do have time to review some new techniques.
We do.
We are on page 4 if you're printing it like this, your handbook. Yeah. Oh, is it about the same?
I think it's pretty much the same. Hopefully it is. Clip to the dot. Why is that so important? Well, this was my mock dress for Grace. And the reason we clip to the dot, it's right here. Let's turn this wrong side out. Where's my bodkin? This is a bodkin. One of many kinds, but this is the one I prefer. Okay. This is the front piece. Let's see. Let me find it for you. You're stitching down this way. You come across, stitch to here, and you go down. Well, if we had, this is the stitching line right there. See, this would pull. So basically what we're doing is we're clipping to that dot to alleviate it. Like that. Be very careful because there's my stitching. Can you see that?
Mm-hmm.
Another trick.
So you guys can see it. Okay.
Is to clip at an angle. Here again, then I take my fingers, use my bodkin, and there's my nice point. That is the reason we clip to the point, to allow it. Also trim catty corner across the point. So it takes all that bulk out of that corner. Then we have to, okay.
Even skirt bottom before hemming. That's our
Okay,
next new technique.
it is. Now you've got to see, I don't care, they're always going to be a little uneven. And what I found even with this, look at this. This is the right side, is shorter than the lining. So you can either put it on right side out, but sometimes I do it wrong side out. And I'll explain it to you. Basically, this told me that the pattern that I had before, I gave it to you. The dress was going to, if I allowed for the hem, was going to be too short. The fabric needed to be longer. So it allowed me to go ahead and adjust it. So I'm going to pin it just like I had before. Murray's snoring.
Murray's snoring.
Murray's snoring.
You guys probably can't hear it, but he's finally calmed down.
He's just happy.
Here, I'll show you guys real quick. There's Murray.
Okay. You would take more time, make sure it's equal. Now you can sort of see this side's a little longer.
Mm-hmm. A little.
And okay. So what I can do is you can take a small ruler, and I like always having it level. And then I would pin it. I'm going to reach over here. Or you can take a marking pencil, and we said 4. And you would do this all the way around. I really like using a turntable because then I never have to move the doll. Once she's on that turntable, I just move the turntable. But I'm basically using a turntable with the June Taylor board. See how much longer that is? Now, before I do anything, make sure she's standing up straight. Okay. Now, did that change it? Oh, just a teeny bit. Now we're back down. What you'd have to decide is how you're going to do your hem. And I think I said to turn it up half an inch. So if I trimmed it here, and if I turned it up a half an inch, it's going to be just about perfect for her. So that is why it's so important, especially on this type of a skirt, to trim it and make sure it's equal, because you don't want a hem. There's nothing worse than watching a movie or a TV show and having the celebrities come out when their hems aren't even.
It's the worst.
It's the worst. I see it and I go, oh, did they see that?
Sometimes it must be intentional if they're wearing couture.
I don't know. Must be, because I get their, they get my attention.
All right, the next new technique we have is snaps.
Oh, snaps. Snaps can be used on modern clothes, but not on antiques, reproductions. That's a no-no. So if you find some, what you're going to do is you're going to remove snaps immediately and put hooks and eyes on. I usually mark my pieces, i.e., which would be here. I would mark where I want my snaps, or where they say for you to mark them, put them.
Is that a special pen?
This is a swing line. It comes with different colors of. Be careful when you get a marking. Some of it says that it will come off with water. Some of it say that it will come off with when you iron it. Test it first, because there's nothing worse than having something that won't come out, and it said it would, and you've got all that. There's only one thought. Okay, I'm going to mark my spot. I personally like to always start on the bottom piece, the one where I always put the little hump.
Okay.
So, come on. And I prefer, here again,
Is that thread knotted at the end?
no, it's not. I just looped it and I just knotted it
Okay.
by going through like so. Let's hope that this, yeah, there, it's knotted. I'm going to take this, go through one of the holes. Remember that buttonhole stitch that we discussed?
Mm-hmm.
That's what you're going to do with this.
Well, I hope you guys are enjoying this. I know Murray sure is.
He's sleeping through it.
Mm-hmm.
Good student. Then go underneath. Come back up. Turn. And you're going to continue that way all the way around. And then you're going to knot it. And you're going to knot it just like this. Somewhere close. Here's a loop. Go through and pull tight. Do it one more time. That's how you knot your thread. And that's how you're going to secure your snaps on.
With both sides.
On both sides. I prefer, okay, now let's pretend that this is the other side. What I do is I always like putting my snap on there. Going like this, right where I need it. Can you see?
Yep, we're getting in there.
And I'm marking it. That way I can take it and I know that that is dead center. And I will stitch it on. So that way, so many times you get it sort of jarred and then you have a gap in your dress or your closure. And that's how you would do that. I always sew one on and make sure it's laying properly, and then I'll go down and mark the second one and do the exact same step. Do both and make sure that it's not getting willy whoppered on me. Okay?
That's very helpful. Thank you. Okay, the next new sewing technique is notches/pinking shears.
When we do shoes, so many times, let me draw here. When you're in class, people send, okay, what's the difference between a notch and a clip? Well, think of it this way. If you have a round circle, that's not really round. Okay, there's your round circle. You would clip this to ease it so it would open up So, but if you have a round circle, okay, if it goes this way, it's not going to open up. It's just going to overlap. So you would cut notches out. So we can cut notches out of fabric, which is like this. And if you're afraid to do this, this is how I used to do it when I was younger. And I sometimes do still. Notice I'm putting my finger behind there. This finger.
Mm-hmm.
It is my stopping point. So I don't go into the seam. If there was a seam there. Or, excuse me. These are pinking shears. They're the ones with little points. There's scalloping, and they go like, they're real round, and then there's pinking shears. And know that there's a left and a right pair of scissors, too. These are right, and if you were left-handed, these would not feel too comfortable. It's reversed.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And this is the easy way to make notches.
Well, I vote for that one.
I do too. It's so much easier. That is the difference. So when people say clip and notch, and that's why.
Okay. All right. Next we have buttons with shanks.
Oh, buttons with shanks. Here we go. Let's put it on here. Well, I prefer to have 2 threads because it's less work and I can get it on faster. Be careful when you go in like this. You can clip your fabric so many times. So you notice I always do it flat. Now, if you do not put this across, see there's an area here. That's where we have to secure it here, in the middle, and over here. So it will stand up. And I'll go through. Go back. And I'm going to go back here. And I'm going to go in the middle. This always looks so messy with black thread.
No, but it's good so we can see it.
And then I'm over here. There. I yanked on it and broke the thread. But I'm going to go around 3 times. That helps it to stand up. And I will knot it. And I always prefer to have my thread go so my little pigtail doesn't show. There. So see, it stands up now.
I like that. Okay, curling
next.
feathers.
Oh, I have to get the feathers over here. Sorry.
Okay, we will be right back. All right, we are back with curling feathers.
Okay. A lot of times you can get these at Hobby Lobby or Michael's. These, but all feathers are not created equal, and you can tell that this has got a real thick spine. and you see how thick that is. But sometimes you get some really cute little feathers like this one. You could trim off. Okay. Now, can you see? This is the right side, and this is the wrong side. And you can feel the spine right there. And that's the side that you're going to curl. And I prefer to take my scissors and just lightly go like so.
Reminds me of doing the ribbon on a present.
That's exactly what it's like. Okay. But then you have other feathers. You can see, here's one. They're finer. They're a little nicer through. And same thing with ostrich feathers. Anything like that you can get there. It's starting to...
Cute. Okay.
That's cute. And then, of course, here's our feathers. And you aren't going to use a lot of... Because, I mean, it would look rather weird for her to have feathers hanging up like this. So you're going to trim them down. So you're going to use this bottom side. And I got to find the spine. Okay, here we go. You can see this is how we get it. And
Perfect.
That's how you curl feathers.
That's easy.
Easy peasy.
Easy peasy. Okay, the last new technique is finishing sole leather.
Okay. What you can do is you have, it says a slicker is optional. This is a slicker. Or you can also use a damp sponge to dampen. And you can use your finger. After a while, your finger gets tired. But before, if it's really rough, and this is starting to get rough, you take an emery board and you file it. And this is going to get rough pretty soon. And then I'm going to file this. And then I'm going to do it again. If you've got the slicker, you can see there's two sizes for small leather and bigger leather. And basically what you're using is, instead of your finger, you've got a little ridge to put it in. This finishes your sole on all of your shoes. Let me see if I can get it. You can see, even though it's wet, and when you do this, you'll start feeling it. There is a ridge. Can you see that ridge? It's there.
Mm-hmm.
That's what you want to file off. And then it's gone. And that's how you finish the sole of your leather shoes. So you can use
helpful.
You can use this or this.
Okay, everybody, so that was new techniques. We just did our review plus new techniques, and that was fun. So what are we going to do next?
Well, we can start on the dress and talk about different things, and because the dress is quite simple.
Yay!
Yes. Yes. If you notice Kate's original dress, it's all, these seams match up, and you're going to sew one complete dress. Let's get the
Okay,
directions.
So we're going to give everybody a break, and then we're going to be back on for our next installment, which is getting this dress. I love it. You guys have the pattern for this, compliments of Linda Wall and her business, Uniquely Yours Porcelain Dolls, in the file sections for download, and also in our shared folder drive. You can find the links for this on the schedule and just click files in the group. And then the kits are wonderful. I think, Linda, you still have a couple more available.
we have-
So
yes, we
yeah,
have some.
so if you're watching this and you got to get your hands on a kit, then you can also find them on Linda's website. There's a link in the video. Okay, we'll see you guys soon. Bye. Welcome back, everybody. We are here with our instructor, Linda Wall, and now we are going to be making our dress.
We are. And if you print it out, your patterns out, make sure they measure 1 inch. If they do not, if on some home printers they're measuring like 15/16, it's not quite enough. What it equates out to is the length of the garment. So you will be off like 3/4 of an inch on the length. And you might have to take a little bit smaller seam. That's the only difference, because I tried it, because some home printers were not printing exactly the same and we couldn't figure out what to do. So that's just precaution always. And we always talked about making a mock dress first out of scrap fabric. But if you follow the directions just as they are, put the fronts to both side fronts. So we did that. So here's a front, and then we have a side front somewhere. Well, we did have it because we just cut it out. Here's the side front. Remember what I talked about, the notches, how important they are?
Yes.
If you match this notch up and you would pin it, and you pin this way in. So many times I've caught students going this way, but and then when they're stitching, what happens is the fabric walks and it won't match. So if you start pinning, and then you can adjust it and ease that in, and you can see it eases in. And if it's fabric, it's even better. Also, if you do it this way, you will stitch, and if you're using the machine, never go over a pin with your machine because it ruins your tension. Also breaks needles. Okay, when you get to this point, that notch, you can see you'll ease it in, and it would go on down just like so. So you're going to do the fronts to both side fronts. And by notching that, it will work. Now, I'll show you the importance of a notch. So many times people take a notch and they go, well, this isn't going to work. Well, what's wrong? It's this notch. So that's the difference. Also, the notch is important on the sleeve because that shows you the back of the sleeve. You have to have the back of the sleeve has to be bigger because you go forward. So you're going to follow all of those directions just like that. Then you're going to press to the back, the fabric pieces. And I press as I go. And then you press the lining pieces to the front. That is so you don't have this big ridge. And we're going to turn it to the wrong side so you can really see it. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. And I've also trimmed the seams, and that's why. Because I just like the seams to be littler, especially on a doll. And if you had the seams going together, you'd have this big lump all the way around, and you don't want lumps on your doll clothes. The next thing is you can trim the seams. We talked about clipping to the dot, and this is why. Right there. So you get a nice point. I also go down to fit on the doll. I cannot stress enough, always fit as you are sewing for your doll, because if something's wrong, stop, correct it. Don't go through the whole thing and say, oh, it doesn't fit. I wished I would have stopped. You can't fit enough.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Okay, then we, even out the bottom of the skirt. We talked about that. You will see I made sure that this was where I wanted to, I cut it here. You can see underneath that's the 1/2 inch, so I could turn it up. Then I trim the lining a little shorter. And this is why. Have you ever had a dress that the lining was exactly the same as the fabric, and as you would wear it, the lining would always constantly show, and then you would end up, you'd either masking
I've even
tape,
paper clipped it up.
paper
at
clip,
events.
masking tape, pinned it, safety pinned it. It
Yep.
drives me crazy.
Done it. Been there.
So this is why we do this. The hem stitch, you would hem stitch it, and I didn't review hem stitch. Maybe I should have reviewed hem stitch. A hem stitch is really quite easy. Okay. Do I have any more pieces? Nope. Well, we do here. I'm going to fold it up. Fold it up. I press that with my fingernail because this natural fibers will press that way. Single thread. This I will not.
All right, Mursky. We're going to have to move you out of the way, bud.
Just a little bit. Now you can go back.
Murray's sitting in Linda's chair.
I'm going to put it underneath there. Take a little bit. Come back up. Take a little, couple threads. Always try to keep your needle parallel with the hem. And that is a hem stitch. There.
Okay, that helps.
Okay, now the next thing would be, it goes to the sleeves, and I say to trim off the bottom of the lining on both sleeves. The reason is the same thing is true on the sleeves. I've had the same thing happen on my sleeves. They've been lined. And this way, when you pull them, what we're going to do is we're going to hand baste the lining fabric around the arm. Okay, sleeves. Okay. Trim off the bottoms. With right sides, stitch the lining fabric across the bottom of the sleeves. So we're going to stitch it across the bottom of the sleeves. But if we trim the lining shorter, then naturally this is going to be. So then I tell you to baste these two together so that always stays up. So when you're putting your sleeve in, then you aren't having it slip. Hand basting will save so much time and anxiety. Here again, this is where we will overcast our seams so they won't fray. And that's the only place we overcasted, I think, on this dress. Very little hand stitching at all, except buttons and snaps, which is nothing. Anything else? Like I said. Okay, make sure the dolls. Oh, when you're sewing your sleeve together, make sure the doll's hand fits. before you go crazy and put the sleeve in, and then you find out it doesn't. And this is how I make sure. But you got to get all the fingers in. But I do know that they fit. And a lot of times I do not put the dress on. This is how I do it. I cheat a little bit. Okay.
That's happened to me with some of the clothes I get in the mail. They don't go at my wrist, and my wrist is too big.
I know.
For them.
It's just like, or your arms.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It says to fold the flap to the right side and stitch on the wrong. This is what I'm talking about, is this flap right here. And this is, and then you're going to put your snap. So that your snap closure will go right there. You notice that the snaps are underneath the buttons. There's a reason for that. It's just because I just don't like a lot of mess. Mm-hmm. And it's all in one spot. And that is how simple it is. And then you put one button. Kate's original dress had 3, but she is so small, 3 buttons would be too much for her. So the rule of odd numbers for the dolls is always have odd numbers, like 3 buttons, 5 buttons, 1 button. And that's why we
that's
do
a great tip.
Because your eyes go crazy if it's even.
Okay.
Your eye will always go there. And that is about all we have, except for the hat and the shoes.
Okay, guys, so we're just going to be back in the same video making the hat and the shoes. So exciting. Hope you guys are learning lots, and it's always a treat to learn from Linda Wall. Linda, thank you.
You're welcome.